Welcome, folks. Fred Gleek here again with Bill DeWeese to do a little bit of a summary of his week. Bill, how was your week?
Well, let's start with the dollars. It was a good week, $5,532.
Nice. So over the target amount.
Over the target, I try to hit $5,000 a week and two new clients, and I did pick up two new clients as well this week. So it was good all the way around. And the interesting thing, Fred, is we are recording this on Friday, July the 3rd. And so a lot of people have taken off today. So today I've done very little. I've been hanging out with my family most of today. I had one project this morning, and that was it.
So most of the business came in, obviously, in the first 4 days of the week.
Yes. So I like it when that happens.
Yeah.
I'm all for a 4-day work week.
Nice. So why don't we review a little bit? You got the two new clients. First off, let's talk about talk about them as you get to them if you want.
Yeah, well, and let me mention this if I can. I had Mallory, my daughter/assistant, did a little math for me, and she told me that 81% of my income this week came from narration. Just to illustrate, we've got this. I've got a big 2-day workshop coming up in September 19th, 20th, and if you're not taking advantage of narration, that is the bulk of not just my work, but that's the bulk of the voiceover work out there. So, if you want to learn how to take advantage, to perform your best and be competitive, blah, 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 VONarrationSuccess.com is the place to visit.
So VONarrationSuccess.com is a seminar coming up in September, correct?
Right. And we're capping it at 9 people.
Right.
And we're about halfway. We have four registrants so far.
Oh, great.
And we just started promoting it, so I expect we'll fill it pretty soon.
So now the other thing to remember is if you're watching this podcast or YouTube video sometime after that time, immediately or soon thereafter the event takes place, we're going to be recording it in full Dolby stereo.
Yes. So that, if you want to take advantage of it in the comfort of your own home, you'll be able to do that as well. So forgive me for the plug, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned that up front while I was thinking of it.
So now 81% is what you did in terms of this week?
Yes, this week in narration, that's pretty typical.
Got it. And you would say that, and again, I think you've thrown out the figure before, that somewhere between 80 and 90% of all VO work is narration.
Yeah, it's a widely held belief. I'm not sure who's actually sat down to do the numbers, but about 90% of all voiceover work is estimated to be narration. So
then, and the remainder, if you were to break it up into percentages, falls into commercial. What is it?
Well, I would say broadcast, which would be essentially TV and radio commercials. And then you've got promo work, which is also broadcast, like TV promo work or radio promo work. And then radio imaging, which is when you're doing just radio-specific IDs and that kind of thing.
Got it. So if someone is, now, of those different areas, narration is probably not the most lucrative, but it is the most consistent, correct?
Yeah. Yes, in terms of per unit, for instance, if I sat down and did a commercial, I can make far more money in 10 or 15 minutes recording a commercial than I can narration. But I make far more narration overall because it's very consistent. It just comes in all day long.
Some might refer to it as your bread and butter.
Exactly. It's not to be cliche, but that's what it is.
Okay.
It is bread and butter.
Good. So for anybody that's listening, watching, again, I think then you would tell them that if they're targeting the other portion of the market, their emphasis is probably a little bit off, correct?
Yes. Now, not to say that, perhaps maybe you can make your living as a movie trailer guy or gal, or doing all commercials. But the people who are able to pull that off, it's very, very few. Extremely small market there. It just makes sense from a common sense and from a business perspective to go where the work is at, where it's plentiful. And narration is really where it's plentiful. If we were to do the math here, and if I did nothing but narration work, I would still make about $200,000 a year, give or take.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And so then for you in your business, and just to clarify for everyone, do you then kind of look at the other work other than narration as sort of like the cherry on the top?
I really do. It's just become almost when I get one of those jobs, it's like, oh, okay, that's nice. It's bonus, but I would never depend on that. I think it's a bad business plan to make that your focus. So again, I focus on where the work is at, which is really where the money is at. It's just I may have to work a little harder for narration to get the money that I do in commercial, but it's much more plentiful.
And much more consistent. Good. Okay, well, let's
Yes.
take it from the top then. Start with Monday, please.
Okay, Monday. By the way, I made $2,000 in voiceover on Monday alone. It was a big day.
Wow.
And I did a narration on financial forecasting.
Yes.
I did some a thing for
Who's the client for that financial forecasting?
I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
Some of the stuff. I mean, yeah, they don't. Sometimes I don't even know who the client is. I mean, I know who I'm doing the work for, a production company, but in terms of the final client, a lot of times I don't know.
Okay. So, in other words, it wasn't branded with their name.
No, correct. Yeah, it was unbranded. And then I did here's another unbranded. I did a training script to teach. It was using a hypothetical company called ColaWorks to show how the inner workings of a business work. So there was that. I picked up 2 new clients they were both on Monday, and they were both what I would call an explainer video. And meaning it's like one of those videos when you go to somebody's website and there's maybe a 2 or 3 or 5 minute video that explains the company and or the product. And so I did a couple of those. One was for something called a product called sous vide. It's a French style of cooking.
You're talking to the wrong guy. I'm a Burger King guy.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah, so I didn't really totally understand it, but it was a cool little project. And I did some on-hold work for a bank, Microsoft Office 365 training, which has been an ongoing project for a few months now. I did some work for the Latin America Import Federation. It's like an educational narration, and then some more internal work for PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Now, what was I going to ask? Of course, I think I've forgotten. But I think that it's important for me to remember what I'm going to ask you, Marco. So keep going.
Don't feel bad. Happens to me all the time. Tuesday, I did some workplace safety training. I did some regional commercials for the Canadian Automobile Association, so the CAA instead of the AAA.
Right.
Food safety training for the agricultural community, which was a different than the earlier safety training I did. I did a little commercial for Bahrain Duty Free store.
Okay.
And then I also did some narration for some pharmacology studies talking about drugs. And then Wednesday, I did some e-learning for Pitney Bowes, also some driver safety training. I did more food safety training and some on-hold narration for National Car Rental. And actually, there's a Drive Alliance, Alamo National, and I forget, but I do like all 3 of those for most of the airports in the country in this country.
I've now remembered what my question is,
Yeah.
which is we've probably talked about this before on past podcasts, but remind me again, when you get a new client, do you send them a fruit basket, perhaps, or what do you do?
No. I have been known to send thank you cards and notes and video emails, and they always get a thank you of some sort.
Right.
From
Might I
me.
suggest a fruit basket?
Yeah. Well, I've done that like at Christmas time for newer clients. I have, or send them. I've actually sent Chicago pizza frozen, that kind of thing. I've done that before.
I was just wondering if it might be effective. One of the things I always say in my business is reinforcement to be effective must be immediate.
Oh, yeah.
Might it not be a good idea, and I don't know what the cost-benefit analysis is on this, but once you get a new client, immediately shoot them out something that gives them like, wow, that's Bill DeWeese, our voiceover guy, doing that?
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And I think you're right. Immediate feedback will hold more bearing than if they get it 6 months later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that I think I'll bet you would be one of the only, if not the only ones to do that in the business. And then the question becomes, well, can you do something that is relatively inexpensive yet has high impact?
And that's the key, because a lot of these projects are, $200, $300, $400, maybe $500. So I'd have to be careful on the amount, but that's something I need to give some thought to.
Yeah, and I also think that I don't really know if it has to be an expensive item. I just think it might. You may want to look into sending something that is kind of fun or interesting that's not necessarily super expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, if you think of something, let me know. In the meantime, I'll have to knock that one around a little bit. But you're right. I think
cap on, and we'll get it going.
A coffee mug with my caricature on the front, which everybody wants one of those.
Everyone, yeah.
Everyone.
Okay, so keep going.
When that was Wednesday. Okay, Thursday I did a real estate narration for the country of Denmark for realtors there. More food safety training. Did a lot of food safety training this week. It was a big project.
I didn't know you could actually read in Danish, though. That's new to me.
Well, the beautiful thing is there's a big demand for people who speak North American style English in Europe. Who knew? I get a lot of work. Yeah. I did more promos for New Mexico PBS as I do every week. I did driver training for a European client this week, which was a little unusual.
Wow, that must have been so. And again, when reading that, it must have been very different than what you're used to doing American
Yeah,
stuff.
you know, it's funny. I'm trying to remember the project because there are so many. I don't even remember the specifics of it. I can't. It had more to do. It wasn't so much with laws and regulations. It had to do with, I think, proper preparation for making sure like your tire pressure's right, and things like that. More along that line.
Right. It's amazing to me how this stuff does. It comes through your eyes, out your mouth, and it's basically gone.
I have very limited bandwidth.
Yes.
In terms of what I can hold on. It's like Teflon. It hits, it slips, and it's gone. So maybe it's because I read so much stuff. I just, I hit capacity pretty quickly.
You know what? Talking about that, I mean, one of the things I think we've talked about before, but bears repeating, is and again, I hate to bring up a sore subject that you probably haven't looked into that I remind you about. If your voice is really what keeps you in, paying the mortgage and paying the rent,
yeah, you
can get your voice or something insured. Lloyd's of London, that kind of stuff. Have you looked into that?
Yeah, I have. Actually, what I found was what was suggested to me. I did some research, and it was suggested that I look at workers' comp as opposed to who did I talk to? Actually, it was an insurance agent that I've had for years. Said it's really hard to insure your voice, but it would be very easy to get workers' compensation, so that if something happened, at least I would take care of my.
And you looked into that, and
I haven't done it. I had the information sitting on my desk.
Got it. So in other words, do you consider this? I mean, I don't know how long it's been sitting there. Do you consider it an important issue?
It is an important issue, and I haven't done anything with it yet, but I need to.
Okay.
Because, let's say, God forbid, today something happened.
Yeah.
And let's say I was injured in an accident, and for some reason it disabled my vocal cords. I'm screwed.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
so thinking. It would be from a business perspective. I need to mitigate that risk, and I haven't. And I've done the research. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it.
Got it. So for those of you listening, don't do as I do. Do as I say.
Exactly. Yeah. Precisely. Or do as Fred says. You're familiar with Joe Walsh? Not Joe.
You're about to go to a concert. I know.
I got music on the brain. I love Joe Walsh. John Walsh. The criminal guy, the guy whose son. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
America's Most Wanted.
That's the guy. Yeah, he's doing some campaign called for DNA Save. It's where they're trying to get DNA of every convicted criminal to put in a database. Blah blah blah. It's a narration, or it'd be considered a narration, I guess, for a website. But I was hired to do. I'm like the voice. There's his voice, and then I do the in between parts. So I guess they didn't want John Walsh to do the whole thing, or Joe Walsh, as the case might be.
Georgia, yeah. I think they should have gotten both.
I think so too. So that was kind of cool. You don't get to do stuff with John Walsh every day.
Yeah. Now, meaning do stuff with him. Did you guys have to interact?
Oh no. I just mean being on the same project.
Yeah. And is this something where there was, you were? Did you get to hear? You didn't get to hear the final version of it anyway. So
no, and I just saw the script, so I saw his part, but I didn't actually hear his part. So yeah, if I actually get to hang out with everybody that I'm, did projects with, that would be cool. I did a thing a little while back for the annual SAG. Was it SAG after? What's that?
SAG Awards.
The SAG Awards. Yeah. I did a a piece that it didn't air for the broadcast, but showed to the people in the auditorium. It was a big thank you for some big foundation they're part of. So it was me, and there's like Susan Sarandon and Matt Damon and Julia Roberts. But it was me, and then they would speak, and then me, and then they would speak, and then May. That would have been cool.
It is pretty funny though, and I think we talked about this at the time, that they're actually using a non-union actor at the SAG Awards.
It's the ultimate voiceover irony.
I know, it sure is.
And I hope they're not listening to this. They might get a little perturbed about it. But I had one project today that I did, Fred, and that was for PepsiCo Frito-Lay. And they're getting ready to introduce some information regarding their route drivers. Okay. And some training for that. So I signed a non-disclosure with them, so I can't say exactly what it was. But
gotcha. Okay, and so how long was that?
Not very. I mean, it took me, I don't know, 15 minutes maybe.
Got it. Now, again, for the people who are maybe first time on the podcast or don't listen that often, when you say 15 minutes, does that? Oops, I've got a little alarm going.
Our time is up, ladies and gentlemen.
It's up, yes. Yes, that's it. That's all I have for Bill. Is that, when you say that amount of time, are you saying that that's the amount of time to record and then you hand it to Mallory, she does the editing?
Yes, that's correct.
And so in a case like this, or just in general, if it took you 15 minutes to record, on average, what additional time is necessary for her to complete the project?
Maybe 3 minutes. I mean, literally, it would take less than 5 minutes to edit.
But that's because of your brilliance and not making many mistakes.
As exactly as I was getting ready to say that, you're a step ahead of me. Well, part of it is, and I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I've done it long enough. I don't make a ton of mistakes. But the other is, editing is just not that complicated. It's pretty easy. And when you've done it for a while, you can do it real fast.
So then, would you say that a person who is new to the VO business, or someone who's, give me the numbers here. If I'm new to the VO business, what percentage of my time on any job will I spend editing versus when I'm a veteran?
Yeah, I would say, okay, ballpark.
Yeah.
Maybe 25% of your time, 25 to 30% of your time when you first get started. Or maybe half, depending. If you're just getting started, it could very well be half of the time to do that. And then once you've done this for a little while, when I say a little while, months, maybe a year, it could become as little as 5% or less.
Got it. Okay, I think that's valuable for people to understand.
Yeah, I think you're right too. Yeah, because that is involved. You have to calculate that, and that's precisely the reason why I hired Mallory, because she could when she's doing that, then I can either be can market, audition, or I can be recording projects, and it allows me to make more money that way.
Well, you hired her also so you could have your grandkids over on a regular basis, wouldn't have to plead for that.
Exactly. Yeah. And now she's got our third one's on the way in August.
Oh.
Late August, she's having a third, so.
Pretty close. Well, good. Any other final thoughts then before we
No, I mean, it's a good week. Just keep in mind that, the bulk of what you do probably will be narration, so make sure you're equipped and prepared for that. But this is, day in the life. It was a good week, so I'm happy.
Good. Well, there you have it. Fred Bleak with Bill DeWeese, and that's the end of the week. Bill, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Fred. Happy